has asked me to explain some things. Let's see how it goes. I believe that the Marvel experience creates tight-knit relationships because it had never really been done before. And I remember having this dinner party shooting in Atlanta around the time of Infinity War, making a cinematic universe, and everyone needed to get points on the board. Every franchise, this and that, needed to work and succeed. And it was one of the last times that you could get everybody from all of the franchises together. And I just remember that as being a special night, particularly a 10-ish year run where it just had this quantum effect.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Robert Downey Jr. just made a big announcement about coming back in Marvel movies, so we'll break it all down. I know there are a lot of questions because the last couple of years, it seemed like he was all over the map as to whether or not he would actually come back. Right after Avengers Endgame, I think most of us assumed it was pretty easy for him to come back in a version of the next Avengers movies, whatever those would have wound up being. Then we learned that they were actually going to do a version of Avengers Secret Wars. But then Oppenheimer happened, he won an Oscar for that and started saying all kinds of things about winning awards and learning that he was still a real actor inside, like he could still actually act in movies, because the acting in Marvel movies is a very different kind of thing than acting in a traditional movie. Very, very different kind of skill set. So then everyone assumed that he would never come back, like, oh no, he likes acting in regular movies now, he's going to be doing that for the rest of his life.
How did Robert Downey Jr. become Iron Man?
It was God's will.
But then just in the last couple of days, he did a total 180 and talked about coming back in new Marvel movies and how happy he would be to do more Marvel movies. So we'll explain what happened, what changed behind the scenes, like what changed inside of him that made him so ready to come back, so excited to come back and do more Marvel movies. We already have a pretty good idea of what that's going to look like based on what Kevin Feige has said they're doing with his previous versions of characters he's played, like Iron Man, for instance. Marvel's already mapped out a lot of the next couple of years. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Of course, I will do videos for whatever they wind up releasing, even though there seem to be big changes that happen every single year. We're in the middle of CinemaCon. They're supposed to show off some special Deadpool and Wolverine footage. I don't know if they're going to release that publicly, but I'll do a video for whatever they do wind up releasing. There'll also be a bunch of other trailers for other movies too that I'll do videos for. But if you didn't see the news, Robert Downey Jr. just did a big interview for all the stuff that's happened to him the last couple of years, primarily because of Oppenheimer winning all the awards.
I wish I could return to this moment.
During the interview, he recapped his entire career, like the crazy period earlier in his life when he was still doing all kinds of drugs, getting in all kinds of trouble, his redemption arc across the Marvel movies where he basically rehabilitated himself, all the criticisms that were labeled against him during his period of Marvel movies, like that 10-year run where people started saying that he could not act anymore, then basically proving all of them wrong when he won the Oscar for Oppenheimer. So one of the big things that happened to him behind the scenes is that after Avengers Endgame, they wanted that to feel like an actual ending for his character, like an end to his time, but also behind the scenes at Disney, there was this big thing about his contract and the way he got paid so much money that the Disney executives absolutely hated. A lot of you have been wondering why Iron Man 4 never got turned into a movie, why they killed off the 616 version of Iron Man in Avengers Endgame. Thor got Love and Thunder, his fourth movie. They just announced they're doing Thor 5 with another director, like Taika Waititi isn't coming back. They're doing Captain America 4 next year, even though all these movies seem like they're getting delayed a little bit. Why not do a fourth movie for their most popular character? Seems like that would have been a slam dunk during Marvel Phase 4. It would have come right after Avengers Endgame, just like Thor Love and Thunder. And some of you probably will not be surprised by this, like this will probably confirm some theories that you've had behind the scenes, but turns out Robert Downey Jr. did not want to get his character killed off in Avengers Endgame, like he didn't want Iron Man to die. And when the studio told him what the story of Infinity War and Endgame were going to be, he basically gave them a polite no thank you. Like, how about we not get rid of the Iron Man character?
I also think that Marvel is on this journey now of they're trying a bunch of other stuff, and I'm excited for them to see how all that goes, and it's hard to project.
If you haven't heard about what Robert Downey Jr.'s experience was like behind the scenes of all of his Marvel movies, like his own Iron Man movies, the Avengers movies, essentially because of the way his contract worked out, he lived like a king. And everybody loved working with him. He loved working with everyone else. Like, it was actually genuinely a really good experience for all of them. So he was totally fine keeping the good times rolling. I'm sure the money didn't hurt either. So leading up to Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, the Disney executives, not Kevin Feige, but the Disney people who had to okay Kevin Feige paying Robert Downey Jr. all this money. This went a couple levels above Kevin Feige. all those Disney executives basically wanted to get rid of Robert Downey Jr., basically stop having to pay him so much money. So they were planning to use Avengers Endgame as a bookend for that period. They wind up writing it so that he sacrifices himself, he snaps his nano infinity gauntlet, and seemingly dies. And originally, the alternate ending for Avengers Endgame was to have Captain America wield the Infinity Gauntlet, he'd snap it, then die as a result. So originally, they were planning on having Captain America wield Thor's hammer, then wield the Infinity Gauntlet. It's a real big moment in the comics, too. But in that version of events, there was no time travel mission that he had at the end of the movie where he stayed with Peggy Carter in the past, no moment at the very end when he returns as an old man in the main timeline and gives the shield to Falcon, and the funeral would have been for him, obviously, not for Iron Man. So it would have been a completely different vibe, completely different ending for Avengers Endgame. And apparently in the writer's room, Kevin Feige, the Russos, the writers eventually decided that they wanted to give Captain America that Peggy Carter reunion ending, and at least in the room, it made more sense to them that they'd have to have Iron Man be the one to snap the Infinity Gauntlet. And because most fans would go into the scene of Iron Man snapping the Infinity Gauntlet expecting him to have some creative workaround enabling him to survive the snap in order to surprise people like big WTF surprise in the theater as much as possible, they legit kill him off. There were so many fan theories after Avengers Endgame came out about how Iron Man could have survived the snap, and he probably could have. Like, you could actually write a way for him to survive that and for it to make sense. Kevin Feige says that they have no plans to resurrect that version of Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man character. Not that they'd never bring him back, but that they wouldn't resurrect that Iron Man that sacrificed himself so that it wouldn't undo his sacrifice, which makes sense. Thus, we move to the Marvel Multiverse Saga after the Infinity Saga, Marvel Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6.
What if Christopher Nolan directed the Avengers?
Whoa, that is the multiverse conundrum.
Kevin Feige seems like he always had plans to bring back a bunch of those actors, depending on whether or not they wanted to come back. Like, they were in the era of Marvel where they didn't lock actors down for like 6-movie, 7-movie picture deals. And generally, because Avengers Endgame was so big, like the ending was such a big deal, they wanted to give it a couple years to settle before they even thought about bringing any of those legacy actors, the original Avengers, back. Then the pandemic happens, things get delayed, Marvel's schedule of movies, Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6, just gets way stretched out longer than they ever intended. Like, we should have seen Secret Wars by now already, had the pandemic not happened. During that time, Robert Downey Jr. goes off to do a bunch of his other projects, working on other kinds of movies. Eventually, Christopher Nolan finds him, puts him in the Oppenheimer movie, and suddenly he discovers that he knows how to act again. Like, he had this big moment of validation. So what Robert Downey Jr. said changed inside of him is that during that period before he got all that validation, like before the actual awards started coming in, he actually felt like being in the Marvel movies for so long, even though he enjoyed that time, ruined his ability to actually be able to act in movies. Then he got all the praise, the acclaim, the awards for Oppenheimer, and that essentially proved to him that that was wrong. He actually did still know how to act. So essentially, he did a 180, said that he would be happy to come back and do more Marvel movies because he got all the validation that he thought that he was not going to get.
It was hard because you realized you really had to nail it as much as you could from the beginning of every day to the end of every day, which is not how I like to work.
And also, side note, in reality, I think, behind the scenes, the Disney people okayed whatever his salary, whatever his quote is now after winning the Oscar, like after getting all those awards, for him to actually come back, because I think his quote definitely shot up after that. Like, before Oppenheimer, him coming back and say, like, Avengers Secret Wars would have maybe cost them, like, $10 million for, like, a 2-minute scene for him to come back. Like, just real quick, blink and you'll miss it kind of cameo scene. Now it's probably, like, double that for a cameo scene. And when he's talking about coming back in Marvel movies, obviously, like I said, Kevin Feige has a very specific plan for how the Marvel movies are going to play out and what they're going to do, what they're not going to do with his original Iron Man character. A lot of people theorize that he would come back for a cameo scene in the Iron Man Armor Wars movie that Rhodey is going to be in the next couple of years, or at least originally before Marvel started canceling a bunch of its movies. Previously, what I think the plan was is that they would actually bring him back for a small cameo during that, but not the kind of cameo you would expect. Like, it wouldn't be him alive, it'd have to be a flashback, or it'd have to be some sort of digital message, but it wouldn't be him coming back permanently. They started to do more and more types of flashbacks in Marvel movies, so it's not hard to pull something like that off. Which then brings us to the obvious place where we will probably see Robert Downey Jr. actually come back in some sort of cameo scene between Avengers 5, whatever that winds up being titled, even though we know they're still doing the Kangs, they're paying that storyline off. It seems like they're making some soft changes to that behind the scenes, like recasting the Kang character. In Avengers Secret Wars, which Marvel is also using to soft reboot the entire MC, like all the Marvel movies just in general. That movie is also meant to sort of be an endgame level moment for all the legacy Fox Marvel actors too, which is why Hugh Jackman is going to continue to play a version of Wolverine through Secret Wars. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man also supposed to come back for Secret Wars, basically a version of what you saw in the comics, just changed a bit. If you ever watched the classic Spider-Man, the animated series from the 90s, they also did a version of the classic 1980s Secret Wars during that too. You have to imagine something on that nature.
The Fantastic Four.
Affirmative.
And there's another who was a big help to me against Carnage and Venom. My friend, Iron Man.
Affirmative.
There's another team of superheroes that I've worked with before. Computer, bring me one of the X-Men.
Which one?
Good question.
Just imagine Robert Downey Jr. coming back as a multiverse version of the character, either a version of Iron Man, he could be a totally different character, like the Sorcerer Supreme of an alternate universe. There was even a deleted scene from Avengers Infinity War where they tried something of that nature, but obviously got rid of it before the theatrical cut and just saved the twist for some future movie. But the idea is that it's very easy to bring Robert Downey Jr. back and not have him be that original Iron Man character. When it comes to Marvel's actual reboot that they're doing on the MCU, though, that's the point after Secret Wars when we start Marvel Phase 7, where they'll start recasting some of those legacy actors if they want, or eventually recasting them. Really good example of that is the brand new version of Wolverine in the Marvel Universe. Eventually, yes, there will be a new version of Iron Man inside the future Marvel movies. It's just they've been waiting for a long time, obviously for moments like this, to bring Robert Downey Jr. back in big cameo scenes. Is the same situation with Marvel waiting to cast a brand new version of Wolverine. Like, we'll let Hugh Jackman continue to be Wolverine for the next couple of movies through Avengers Secret Wars. Then at some point after that, like a couple years after Secret Wars, whichever year that does wind up happening, then they'll cast a new Wolverine. Same thing with the new version of Iron Man. If they do wind up bringing Robert Downey Jr. back for a cameo scene in Secret Wars and then eventually recasting the character, let me know in the comments with this whole soft reboot of Marvel, who would you want to play that brand new version of Iron Man? There's a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Like I said, Deadpool and Wolverine footage might make it online later this week. If it doesn't, I'll still try to do a video for it. We'll see. There's supposed to be a big Joker 2 trailer coming later tonight. Click here for that. I'll update the link as soon as I post that. And click here for my new Deadpool and Wolverine video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.